The 21st century isn't just the era of pandemics, the world order spinning off its hinges, and, you know, TikTok. It's also the golden age of Soulslikes, the video game genre that sprouted from the mind of a small boy growing up in the suburbs of Shizuoka, Japan, trying to fill in the gaps in those English-written fantasy stories he only half understood. This is the genre that became my go-to for video games, accounting for probably 90% of the time I spend with my beloved console. That said, even though I adore the genre, I don't love every single addition to it. So, here comes my ranking of all the Soulslikes I've played. And I hope you like it hot. That you demand a refund if your Starbucks coffee doesn't blister your tongue, and that you stroll along the beach at noon only without sunscreen. Because some of the takes coming up are going to be burning hot. Starting from the bottom, the Nioh series. If I could drag Nioh by its underwear over its head, I wouldn't hesitate for a minute. This popular action series, sometimes even called the best Souls-like, didn't hit a single note on my inner keyboard. I tried to like the game, I really did. But a story full of astral kitties and cute little monsters straight out of a second grader's notebook didn't make it any easier. The levels are linear and repetitive. The combat system is based on the key pulse mechanic, which did not sit well with my slow reflexes. I don't know why, but the graphic style gives me almost real physical nausea. Maybe it's the color palette or the oversaturated filter, but I couldn't play either part of Nioh for more than a few dozen minutes before the game literally gave me a headache. And then, so much shit. Playing Nioh is like hitting a winning streak on a slot machine. Except instead of money, you get weapons, armor, more armor. I totally get that Nioh is beloved by a lot of Souls-like fans, but my preferences lie elsewhere. And unfortunately, Nioh didn't hit almost any of them. To everyone else, I wish you tons of fun with Nioh 3, but I'll be sitting that one out. Moving on to Black Myth Wukong. I was hyped for this game from the moment it was announced, even though, like a lot of people, I had doubts about whether the developers could deliver on those sky-high trailer expectations. I even wondered if the game was real or just another case of the day before. Plenty of people thought what was shown in the marketing videos wasn't actually possible, that those trailers were just tech demos that couldn't be turned into a real game. The good news? The game is real. And from an objective standpoint, it's probably genuinely good. The bad news for me? It just didn't hit my personal taste. In my defense, I know my expectations weren't right. I was hoping for a Souls and Sekiro-like experience with a combat system where defense is all about dodging and parrying. And while parrying does exist here, it's just an extra skill you learn and use optionally, and not very often. Overall, the fights felt a bit superficial to me and lacked the weight I crave. And the monkey screeching with every hit, yeah, that didn't deepen my affection at all. I was excited for it to be more of a boss rush game with a minimal filler between bosses, but because of the combat I mentioned, hacking through them felt more like mowing grass. The enemies don't put up much resistance, and the same blade works on everyone. On the plus side for Wukong, the environments are diverse, and the game functions well overall. Objectively, I would recommend it to an unbiased player, but I definitely won't be going for another playthrough, and I won't be buying the DLC either. Now, this one hurts, almost physically, because I really wanted to love the game. Khazan was my gaming event of 2025, and the pre-release demo backed up my hype. This was going to be the best Souls-like not made by From Software. The boss fights were peak. Sure, to cut through 10% of their health pool, you'd have to cancel your appointments for the next week, but it was the point. The combat was tough, the combat system felt heavy. It had real substance. I loved the demo, and I loved the first part of the full game. But soon the flaws, or rather the flaw, started baring its teeth. To get to the meat of the game, I had to slog through a chain of grey, uninspired rooms filled with grey, uninspired lizard enemies. Over and over again. After seeing the first 3 levels, I've seen them all. In the late game, there's a level in an opera house, and I rejoiced. That's it. It took like 10 hours, but now the developers are unpacking the creative level design I'm here for. Well, no, they're not. The opera house was apparently designed by the same architect as the rest of the world. The kind of guy who wears sunglasses to an indoor dinner with the parents. The side missions I absolutely needed to complete to keep up with the game's level curve were even more uninspired than the main ones. It didn't help that in the second half of the game, the meaty 1 vs 1 boss fights got swapped out for chasing magicians who were spitting, pissing and puking at me across arenas the size of a football field. I didn't finish Khazan. I stopped 2 or 3 bosses from the end, and I probably won't be able to wrap it up even if George R.R. Martin was waiting at the end with the Winds of Winter. And it makes me really sad. Khazan, it was fun while it lasted. I was actually thinking about putting Wukong below Khazan. But hey, at least I was able to finish this one. So here it is. A game that didn't do a lot of things right, but didn't do a lot wrong either. It's an okay Souls-like for killing some free time. Like with a bunch of other games, the demo hooked me more than the full release delivered. The combat system is precise and entertaining for a while, but the linear and stereotypical levels aren't anything worth writing home about. Though they're still more engaging and colorful than Khazan's. The game introduces a kind of double leveling system, where you don't just level your character across the whole game, but also extra within each level. That means you can have an overall high-level character, but if you miss a few so-called marking flags that boost your XP for that specific level, you'll suffer a lot. No, that's not fun. You hear that, Shadow of the Air Tree? Not fun. All in all though, Wukong gets a thumbs up as a quick snack for those dry gaming seasons, of which we actually haven't seen a lot in the last few years. This brutal fable about a puppet boy brought to life tops the charts for most Souls-like fans when it comes to non-From Software Souls games. So why only the 3rd place? Lies of P does a ton of things really well. Actually, probably most of them. But the clunky, awkward parry system, combined with the unnatural, jerky movements of the enemies, just didn't click for me. I also couldn't find my way into the cyberpunk Friends setting. The whole game defined itself for me as good, but off. And I know my gripes aren't objectively grounded. They are more a matter of personal taste. But the game works. And what it sets out to do, it does well. The levels are varied, the bosses are memorable. The story is well told and, if you connect with it, very emotional. The weapon creation system, where the handle determines the weapon's moveset and stat scaling, and the blade handles the damage type, is super innovative. And I found myself lost in testing combos for dozens of minutes, maybe hours. Now that I'm talking about it, actual fond memories are flooding back, so yeah, it's a good game. Very good indeed. I haven't had a chance to try the DLC Overture yet, but I'll get to it. We have Dark Souls at home, I mean Lords of the Fallen. There are plenty of things you could hate about this Dark Souls from Wish. The technical state at launch, the not quite precise combat system, bosses that are too easy or levels that are too hard, where you're getting shot at, sprayed and puked on from every direction, making you wonder if you've accidentally ended up at a PDD party. The last stretch of the game might as well have been designed by that guy. I wasn't thrilled about the innovative alternate world system called Umbral, which gives players a second chance after death in this bluish alternate reality, because hectically running through hundreds of copies of the same enemy isn't exactly my definition of fun. The game also only has like 5 kinds of enemies, and no, dear developers, you can't trick me with a knight in a dark armor, knight in a light armor and a knight with a pink band in his hair. It's all the same damn type of enemy. But at the same time, the game has a bunch of features that are easy to fall in love with. The world design is top tier, and the panoramic views waiting around every other corner will take your breath away. Clearly, a lot of love went into the graphics and the design of individual levels. Lords of the Fallen might create the best sense of an interconnected world since the original Dark Souls. And all of that contributes to why, for me personally, Lords of the Fallen is one of the best Souls-like titles out there right now. The atmosphere. It's gloomy, oppressive, melancholic, with sparks of hope flickering here and there, dosed just right so the weight doesn't crush you completely. Plus, the fact that the developers are constantly improving the game, making it more accessible, and generally listening to players' feedback can only work in their favor. That's why Lords of the Fallen 2 is probably my most anticipated gaming project right now. Thymesia, in my opinion, is too small of a game to make the full list. It's more like a demo, but if I did include it in the list, it would be somewhere in the lower half. Stellar Blade, on the other hand, I enjoyed a lot. But although it does feature a number of Souls-like elements, it's not a Souls-like in my book. But if we did consider it a Souls-like, it would be actually somewhere among my frontrunners. And now, the first place goes to Enotria: The Last Song. This Italian Souls-like got a ton of hate from both the press and the players. On Metacritic, its score sits in the orange numbers. And yeah, I assume rightfully so. Among other things, the game was slammed for its catastrophic technical state at launch, and a very limited inventory when it comes to enemies, and especially bosses. And it's true, 90% of the bosses are just a guy with a sword. But I fell in love with Enotria: The Last Song. I devoured the pre-release demo, and I devoured the full game too. Twice in a row actually. Because on my first playthrough, I missed the true final boss. I won't exaggerate too much when I say I enjoyed every moment of the game. Enotria, while copying a huge chunk of the Souls formula, tried to add at least a few innovative elements to the genre. First, you are allowed to create up to 3 whole loadouts, called masks, that you can switch between with one button press, which I imagine is super convenient for anyone who actually enjoys building toward different characters. Second, the combat system uses an elemental rock-paper-scissors setup. On screen, you see a wheel of 4 elements, each giving both you and the enemy certain strengths and weaknesses. Each element is strong against another, so you're supposed to use specific elemental loadouts against bosses based on what they are weak to. It sounds complicated, and during my first run, it was. Luckily, you can pretty much ignore these systems and just tank your way through the game. It's almost a pity, because in my second playthrough, I actually dove into them, and they gave the game a real breath of fresh air. The combat system focused on deeply satisfying parries, and the monumental soundtrack clicked with me perfectly. But what struck the deepest chord for me was the sun-drenched Italian setting, which I associate with yearly vacations and pure relaxation. For me personally, Enotria is the pinnacle of Souls-like games, and quite possibly one of my top games ever. So, I'll now see myself out. That was my admittedly unconventional Souls-like list. Please feel free to give it a like or a dislike whether you agree or disagree, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.